So just a quick video for you today on how we test our exhaust flaps in VCDS. It's a Mk7 Golf R. So we go to control module. We do engine, output test. Then we'll go down to our exhaust flap. Let's do bank 2, start. I'll come around to the back of the vehicle. This is an MBRP exhaust, so we can see it. We see our exhaust flap functioning. And that will verify that the motor and the wiring works. So then see here, so we're logging our the commands for exhaust flap bank 1, and you can see it's flipping between open and close. Oops. Gotta stop and start the test again. Running, yeah, between open and closed. And we just go in here and just search exhaust under our data log and it'll come up. When we come to the back of the vehicle here, we see bank 1 is not opening and closing. So it means that we have a problem with this here. So the next step would be to probe the wires and see if we're getting voltage through the wires. And then maybe you could try and swap the exhaust actuators to see if it's a bad actuator. So we've activated this with VCDS, and we can see that we have power here. So we do have power going to it. So that's a good first step. Now the next thing to do is test that the grounds on that connector are good. So I didn't show you this part because it's kind of janky. I didn't want to accidentally short circuit the hell out of everything, but I clamped my test light onto this so I could poke the power terminal. Then I probed the other 2 terminals and I saw that we have continuity there. So we put power through them, and we saw on the VCDS that it was commanding or reading the command. So we know that in this case, I believe we just have a faulty actuator, because it's like not even making any sound at all or moving or anything. So if you want to be 100% certain, you could take the one from the other side and swap it over, and then that would save you some diagnostics. And then as well, like if your other side's working, that's a known good actuator, so we can move that to over here to test it. And that would rule out the actuator, so you know it's a wiring issue because it's a known good actuator. But this is a way of doing it without having to pull your actuators off. So unfortunately we will have to change that actuator there, but that's life. So the whole reason I got the active exhaust was so that I could have it quiet when I'm leaving for work in the morning. But then I realized it stays loud and I saw that actuator is not working. With the stock exhaust, I had them coated open with VCDS. So it's probably been broken for a long time. I just haven't even known, but hopefully this can help some of you guys out. So here we've replaced the motor up there. I have the test running in VCDS, so we can see that the exhaust flap is now functioning as it should. So that's a successful repair. So we were able to replace this motor here on the vehicle. I just installed this MBRP, so it's all brand new fresh bolts, so I was able to just get up there and twist them out and then replace it. If you are doing this on your stock exhaust and you live in an area like I do in Canada where it's rusty, the stock bolts that come off, or nuts, sorry, has studs on the stock exhaust. They're gonna look something like this. You can see that they're quite crusty, and of the 6 of them on there, those are the only 2 that came off really unscathed. all the other ones stripped out, and that was after soaking it with penetrating oil. So I'd strongly recommend anticipating having to replace those. I don't know the exact thread on these or the size of them. If I remember, I'll run some tops through and trying to figure out the thread size for you. We'll have to replace those most definitely, and expect them to strip out. So as you can see, there's not much room to work up in there, and if you strip those out, it's going to be an absolute nightmare. So I anticipate dropping the exhaust. To drop the exhaust, there's the hangers and then a band clamp in the middle that connects the front and rear sections, and then you can take the bolt out there and a bolt out of the center piece, and then there's another hanger further in that you slide out, and then that'll allow you to drop the exhaust down. With just releasing them, you might be able to drop it down just enough with the flex pipe, I'm not sure, but you're definitely going to want some space to work on those, and expect to have to use vice grips or a screw extractor. I used one of the reverse thread extractors that looks kind of like a socket that's got the cuts in it, so it grabs in and twists them off, and it worked pretty well with some penetrating oil. I didn't have to put any heat on it. Be careful with heating because you don't want to damage your motors because they're kind of expensive. This is the old one that failed. I might take it apart. I might see if I can snap it in half and see if maybe the seal failed and it died from water ingress. I'm not sure. Interestingly enough, there's no fault code in the computer for this not working. So it was signaling for it to work. It just, the motor wasn't doing anything. Pull this spring off and save it, because sometimes these springs can snap. So then you'll have a spare. Even if the motor's dead, save that spring. Throw it in your toolbox somewhere where you'll forget about it when you need it. Other than that, yeah, the connector. So it's a 3-pin with the power and 2 grounds that I kind of showed you when we were using the test light. The way that you get the connector off, I should have told you earlier, but there's a gray locking tab, and spray with some silicone first, silicone spray or something to give yourself a bit of a hand, and pull that locking tab back and then jiggle it to kind of loosen it up, and then you push down on the top and it pulls out. And then that's the way that you remove that. If you don't pull that locking tab off, you're gonna have a nightmare because you can't actually push down the release, so make sure you pull that gray tab back to release it. If you want to give yourself some more space, the one wiring loom, if you follow it, it's clipped to the frame rail, and the other one is over there with like kind of a zip tie release thing, and then this one had like a metal clip that clipped on. So release those, then you'll give yourself some more room with the wires. Careful tugging on the wires because you don't want to rip that connector off. If you do damage your connectors, you can repin them, and if you look at the connector and clean it off, it'll have a long number on it, and if you Google that number, it'll give you the part for the connector. Just when you cut your wires to put the repair connector on, make sure that you use heat shrink or butt connectors that have heat shrink, because it's under the vehicle, so it'll get corrosion. And if you're gonna do that, retape it with loom tape so you don't get abrasion like that fabric tape, and then make sure you take a photo of the color of the wires with the connector where you can see the clear orientation, so you don't get them mixed up and swap everything up and wire it wrong. Otherwise you're gonna obviously have a bunch of problems, but otherwise it's fairly easy. So on your exhaust there will be kind of 2 spots that this spring goes in, and you just set it on there, and then you have to give it just a little twist. If it's not lining up, just grab the top and move the exhaust valve. It should do a self-calibration before it actuates, so you can't really mess it up. I mean, maybe you could somehow if you really tried, but it's a fairly simple device. So there's the stock exhaust sitting in the back of my truck, so you can see there's really only one way that it can go on. If I can get it back off. So those are the studs that come out. you might be able to press those in or replace them if they're super crusty. If not, you probably have to drill it out from the back or cut the back off with a grinder and then put a bolt in as per the spring. You can see what I mean. So it has to sit with these two tabs and that notch. So it can be a bit of a pain. It's harder with the stock exhaust because you can't just reach in. So have a screwdriver where you can reach in and kind of poke things around and make sure that both sides of it are sitting in the corresponding slots like that there when the motor moves. And then when you first install it, it might need just a little bit of a twist or jiggle to get it lined up. And then when you start it, the vehicle, it'll turn itself and do a self-test and calibrate itself. But that's kind of what you're working with. If memory serves me, on the stock exhaust, this sits even higher up than on that aftermarket one that I have under there. So you really don't have a lot of room. So, and you can see these aren't even really that corroded, and it's still stripped off all the fasteners. So make sure that you have them to have new ones to put on, or pull one off and then bring it to a hardware store and see what bolt it threads on, and then you'll know the thread pitch, and you can get just any locking nut, maybe put some anti-seize on it. Don't know if there's torque spec for that. Sure it is, but just don't tighten the hell out of it and you'll be okay. So really it's quite a simple repair. It's just a question of space, but you can really give yourself a better fighting chance by having silicone spray for this and penetrating oil on the bolts before you start, and anticipate those bolts fighting you. As for the center clamp, the stock center clamp, here, let me just grab it and find it. Here's that center clamp I was talking about that connects the front and rear of the exhaust. So if you do decide to take the whole thing out to work on it outside the vehicle, expect having to replace this as well. This one, no way in hell you're getting those bolts off, so I just cut it with a grinder. These are a pretty nice clamp, but they're also pretty expensive. So if you cut it, expect another, 50 bucks Canadian or whatever that cost. I did not have another one of these sitting around, obviously, but what I did was I reconnected, I connected the aftermarket system to the stock pipe with a 2.5 inch band clamp, like one of those long silver clamps, like not the one with this for the slip fit, just a butt joint clamp. And I put red high temp RTV in there. There's a Permatex Optimum Red that's made for exhaust, and it works pretty well. So put that on, and it'll have like a bar, and then it clamps the metal bands that way and tightens them against that bar. Make sure you have the rounded part towards the tailpipe. Clean everything off real good with some sandpaper to give it a fighting chance. Put RTV on the inside of it and RTV on each side of where the metal bar goes. You'll know what I'm looking at. You'll know what I'm talking about when you look at it. And then tighten it down just enough until it oozes out, and then give it an hour to set. Then you can tighten it all the way. You're supposed to let it sit for 24 hours or whatever, but overnight's fine. I've never had any leaks just doing it that way. So there you go. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask them, and try and do my best to answer. Just while I'm here, I figured I'd give you just a quick, I'd actually just take this off and explain it, because it's going to be a bit of a pain. You can't really see it. So this gray tab will be forwards, so you can get a pick in there and pull it back. And then what that'll do is it'll let you push down on here to actually release it, as you can see. So then you clip it back on and push this to repin them. You pull that purple thing out, and then you have to push a tool in the middle of those, and it'll release the pins. There's tons of videos on repinning connectors online, so I'm probably never going to make one to show you guys, just because there's higher quality ones out there. But that's your connector, and that's how you get it off. Again, a little bit of silicone spray will probably give you a fighting chance, and I'll get you the part numbers for that clamp and measure that bolt in a second. So I had the most cheesed up, haggard top set ever, but Feels like an M5 by 0.8, I believe that is. Yeah, M5 by 0.08. If you can only get the bolts, get a washer that goes under it if you don't have one of these ones that has the flange, just because you want to spread out the load over the plastic there. You don't want to chew into it or crack it or anything. And then I'll just include a photo of the part number for that connector. And just going to the back of the old truck here, getting ready to run to the dump, so excuse me. But there's hangers on each side of the muffler, and they each have a bolt that bolts to the car. So you can take those bolts off. This hanger here, silicone spray, and then it'll slide out. And then this one up here bolts up to the vehicle as well, so you can unbolt that. And then the center clamp mounts about here. So I think if you unbolt those, you'd probably be able to drop it down just enough with the flex pipe. There's a metal bar that runs across here that has 4 bolts that you can undo to take it down from the vehicle. So if you have to drop it down, that's probably the best way to do it. And then I'll include a photo of the what I think is the part number on that connector. Volkswagen is pretty good online on their parts websites about being able to find connectors and order them. So I'm sure you can even find those bolts and buy them, but it'd probably be cheaper and quicker and easier just to go to your hardware store if you have one local. Probably put anti-seize on them so they come off easier. That's just my practice with those kinds of things, especially small fasteners like that are subject to rust. If you really want to be sure about it, you can put some high temp grease, like brake grease, on top of it so it doesn't rust, or get some stainless ones or something. Anyway, so this is working now. These MBRP exhausts are awesome, by the way. Without VCDS, I'm not sure how well you'd be able to actually test that to diagnose it. If you own a Volkswagen, VCDS is worth buying for sure. You can also do those with there's like a phone app one that connects to your OBD port. OBD 11, I think, something like that. I don't know. VCDS is my preferred system. Otherwise, I think that's about all there is to this repair. Without VCDS, you can disconnect the motor and then move it to the other side to test it. It's a pain though, because now you have to unbolt both motors. Better off just buying VCDS or OBD 11, and then you have the diagnostic tools to work on your Volkswagen. What else? Yeah, if you have a faulted ground, you'd have to go find that somewhere in the wiring harness and repair it. And if you have a power fault, the first place I go is check the fuses. I can't remember which fuse it is, but it's one of the 10 amp ones under the hood that controls these, I believe, but I'm not 100% sure on that. You'd have to go find a wiring diagram. There's wiring diagrams available online for these Volkswagens that you can find. Otherwise, good luck with repairing your exhaust valves.